The nurse grabbed my arm and whispered, "You need to hide. Now." I'm Elio Collins, and I'd just rushed into Cedars-Sinai Hospital because my son called crying about food poisoning. But what I found in that ICU room wasn't what any father should ever discover about their own child. My son Cade was lying in that hospital bed, and the doctors were saying he might not make it. But here's what nobody knew. Not the medical staff, not the family gathered around, not even Cade himself. What was happening in that room wasn't an accident. It wasn't food poisoning. And it definitely wasn't what it seemed. See, I've been driving Uber for 2 years, living paycheck to paycheck in a tiny apartment. Everyone sees me as just another broke father who couldn't provide the life his family deserved. Everyone treats me like I'm invisible, irrelevant, forgettable. But sometimes the person everyone underestimates is exactly the person who's been watching them the whole time. What happened next turned a family medical emergency into the most shocking moment of my entire life. Because the person I thought I knew better than anyone had been planning something that would change everything forever. Want to know what really happened in that hospital room? Hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because this story will make you question whether you truly know the people closest to you. Let me start from the beginning and show you how everything I believed about family was about to be destroyed. Walking into Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, I felt every judgmental stare. My worn Uber jacket, my Honda Civic keys jingling in my pocket. The security guard actually asked to see my ID twice, like I didn't belong in this Beverly Hills hospital. "Sir, visiting hours end at 8, the receptionist said, barely looking up from her computer. "I'm here for my son, Cade Collins, room 314. She typed slowly, frowned. "Are you on the approved visitor list?" 20 minutes later, I'm standing outside Cade's private room. Through the window, I could see him propped up in bed, his wife Anya beside him holding her designer purse. That Louis Vuitton bag cost $2,800. I know because she posted about it on Instagram last month with the caption, "Success isn't given, it's earned." Success I apparently hadn't earned for my family. Dr. Harrison emerged from the room, expensive watch catching the fluorescent light. He glanced at me, took in my appearance, and his expression shifted to barely concealed impatience. "You're the father?" "Yes. How is he?" "We're running tests. Food poisoning can be complicated, especially with his pre-existing conditions." "What pre-existing conditions?" He paused, checked his chart. "His diabetes, obviously." "My son doesn't have diabetes." I kept my face neutral. "Of course. How serious is it?" "We may need to discuss some difficult decisions. End-of-life planning. Do you have medical power of attorney?" "End-of-life planning. For food poisoning." "I'll need to check with his wife," I said carefully. "Mrs. Collins is handling everything. She's been very proactive about his care." Dr. Harrison's smile didn't reach his eyes. Very concerned about his suffering unnecessarily. That's when Nurse Orion Walsh appeared beside us. "Dr. Harrison, you're needed in surgery." After the doctor left, Walsh pulled me aside. "I shouldn't say this, but the blood work doesn't match food poisoning. His insulin levels are dangerously elevated, but he's not diabetic." "What does that mean?" "It means someone gave him insulin who shouldn't have." He glanced around nervously. "And there's something else. His medical bills, $47,000, were paid in full yesterday, before he even got sick." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Everything on schedule. Insurance docs signed. Dad arrives 4:15 p.m. as planned." Wrong number, obviously, but the timing was interesting. 4:15 p.m. That's exactly when I'd arrived. Standing in that hospital corridor, I calculated what staying silent would cost me. First, my son's life. Whatever was happening here, someone wanted Cade dead. And if I said nothing, kept playing the role of the clueless Uber driver, he'd be gone by morning. Second, my livelihood. I made $2,200 last month driving for Uber. My rent is $1,850. Health insurance is $340. I live paycheck to paycheck, and everyone knows it. If I accused a Beverly Hills doctor of attempted murder with no proof, I'd be labeled crazy, possibly sued, definitely unemployed. third 8 months of work, 8 months of the most difficult investigation of my 22-year career. Because here's what nobody knew. I'd been building a federal case against my own son since March. It started with a tip from an insurance investigator. Someone was taking out multiple life insurance policies on the same target. Large policies. The kind that pay out $1.8 million. The target's name was Elio Collins. My name. I'd been watching Cade and his wife Anya for 8 months. Recording conversations, documenting their debts. Anya owed $180,000 in gambling losses. Tracking the insurance applications they'd forged with my signature. The hardest part wasn't the investigation. It was listening to my son plan my death. He's so pathetic, Cade had said during a dinner I'd secretly recorded in July. Living in that tiny apartment, driving strangers around for tips. When he's gone, we can finally live the life we deserve. Anya had agreed. The policies activate next month. We just need the right opportunity. Now I'm watching Dr. Harrison push a DNR form toward my son's bedside table. The same doctor who'd insisted he had diabetes. The same doctor whose medical license showed disciplinary action for insurance fraud in Nevada. I pulled out my phone and activated the recording app. Cade, how are you feeling? He looked up, and for just a moment, his face showed genuine surprise, like he'd forgotten I was supposed to be here. Dad, you came. Of course I came. You're my son. Anya appeared from the bathroom, 5'6", wearing a Rolex that cost $8,500. Her smile was sharp as a blade. Elio, thanks for coming. We weren't sure you'd be able to get here. What's that supposed to mean? Just that Uber drivers don't exactly have flexible schedules. I let that hang in the air. How's the insurance situation? This must be expensive. Cade exchanged a quick glance with his wife. Insurance? Your medical coverage. I know you've been making some changes recently. Everything's handled, Anya said quickly. We're adults, Elio. We can manage our own affairs. I'm sure you can. Those new life insurance policies must give you peace of mind. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. What life insurance policies? Cade asked, but his voice was strained. The 3 $600,000 policies. On me. Taken out over the past 8 months. Anya stepped forward. I think you're confused, old man. Am I? Policy numbers NL44328891, NL44328892, and NL44328893. Total benefit $1.8 million. Beneficiaries Cade Collins and Anya Collins. The silence stretched like a taut wire. How did you... I'd started, then stopped. Know about those? Good question. Better question. Why does my son need 3 life insurance policies on his broke father? Dr. Harrison chose that moment to return, DNR paperwork in hand. Mr. Collins, we need to discuss your son's condition. Given the severity of his situation, we should prepare for all possibilities. What situation exactly, doctor? His diabetes has caused complications. We may need to consider limiting aggressive treatment. I looked at my son. My ambitious son, who had just tried to have me declared incompetent so he could collect $1.8 million. He doesn't have diabetes, I said quietly, and that's when everything started falling apart. That's ridiculous, Dr. Harrison said. His medical records clearly show... Show what? A diagnosis that didn't exist until last month? Cade struggled to sit up straighter. Dad, you're embarrassing me. This is a private room. Private room that costs $1,200 a day. Already paid for, in advance. Anya stepped between me and the bed. Sir, you need to lower your voice. Why? Afraid someone might hear us? We can handle his care expenses, Anya continued. You don't need to worry about money you don't have. Each word was calculated, designed to remind me of my place. Expenses like the $47,000 that was paid yesterday? Before he got sick? Dr. Harrison's face flushed. Patient privacy laws prevent me from discussing... Discussing what? The insulin overdose? Cade's monitors started beeping faster. Real panic, not performance. That's enough, Anya snapped. Security. Call them. I'd love to explain why my son's blood work shows insulin levels consistent with attempted homicide. Dad, stop! Cade's voice cracked. You're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. Nurse Walsh appeared in the doorway, but instead of security, he brought someone else. A woman in a dark suit, badge visible on her belt. Mr. Collins? Agent Morrison, FBI Financial Crimes Unit. We need to talk. The color drained from Anya's face. Agent Morrison? Dr. Harrison stammered. I don't understand. Doctor, you're going to want to call your lawyer. She turned to me. All good here, partner? Partner. Cade's eyes went wide. Partner? Surprise, son. Your broke father has been a federal investigator for 22 years. The room went dead silent, except for the steady beep of Cade's heart monitor. No, Cade whispered. No, you're an Uber driver. You live in a crappy apartment. You barely finished high school. I finished high school, then college, then the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, class of 2002. Anya backed against the wall. This is insane. You're crazy. Am I? Agent Morrison, could you share our findings? She smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. 3 life insurance policies, total value $1.8 million, purchased over 8 months using forged signatures. Medical records falsified to show pre-existing conditions that would justify sudden death. That's impossible, Cade said, but his voice shook. 47 recorded conversations planning insurance fraud and conspiracy to commit murder. Bank records showing payment to Dr. Harrison for services rendered. Text messages coordinating today's timeline. Dr. Harrison tried to leave. Agent Morrison blocked his path. Going somewhere, doctor? I want my lawyer. You'll need one. Medical license fraud, insurance conspiracy, attempted murder. That's 15 to 20 years federal time. Cade stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. You've been recording us? For 8 months. But why? I'm your son. Because my son was planning to murder me for money. Anya's hands were shaking now. You can't prove intent. Can't I? I pulled out my phone, played a recording from last week. Cade's voice, crystal clear. Once the insulin kicks in, he'll go into shock. Dr. Harrison says it'll look natural. Heart failure. Dad's been under so much stress lately. Anya's voice. And then we're set. 1.8 million. We can finally get out of this financial hole. Cade's voice. I almost feel bad, but he's never done anything for me anyway. This is probably the most useful he'll ever be. The recording stopped. The room was so quiet, I could hear the ventilation system humming. Cade was crying now, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of rage. You bastard! You manipulative bastard! How could you do this to your own family? How could I do this? My voice stayed level, controlled. Cade, you hired a doctor to inject me with insulin so you could collect life insurance money. You planned my funeral while I was still alive. You don't understand the pressure we're under. Pressure? You make 6 figures in marketing. You live in a $4,000 a month apartment. That's not enough, he screamed. Do you know what it's like having friends who vacation in Europe while I'm stuck budgeting for everything? Do you know how embarrassing it is when they ask what my father does for a living? And there it was. The truth beneath all the financial planning and insurance policies. He wasn't just trying to kill me for money. He was trying to kill me because I embarrassed him. So you decided I should die. I decided you should finally be useful for once in your pathetic life. Agent Morrison stepped forward. Cade Collins, Anya Collins, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and federal racketeering charges. As she read them their rights, I watched my son's face transform from panic to cold calculation to pure hatred. When Agent Morrison finished, Cade looked directly at me. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed your own family for what? Your precious career? I've destroyed criminals who happen to share my DNA. Blood doesn't matter to you at all, does it? I considered the question. 22 years investigating fraud. 8 months watching my son plan my death. Listening to him call me useless, pathetic, a burden. Blood doesn't guarantee loyalty, Cade. Actions do. And that's when he realized he'd lost completely. Looking back, there were signs I should have caught earlier. The first was Cade's sudden interest in my health last spring. He'd never asked about my medical history before, but suddenly he was calling every few weeks. Dad, you should really get a checkup. Men your age, you never know. I feel fine, son. But what if something happened? Are your affairs in order? Do you have life insurance? I found it odd that my son, who usually avoided talking to me, was suddenly concerned about my mortality. But I wanted to believe it meant he cared. The second sign was Anya's questions about my work schedule. During one of our rare family dinners in June, she kept pressing for details. Uber must be unpredictable. Do people know where you are? What do you mean? Like, if something happened to you, would anyone notice right away? Cade had kicked her under the table. Anya means for emergency contacts. But that wasn't what she meant, and we all knew it. The third sign was subtler. My son started asking about my apartment lease, my bank accounts, my debts, always framed as concern, but the questions were too specific, too focused on my net worth. Dad, you're not getting any younger. Have you thought about what happens to your stuff? What stuff? I drive a 12-year-old Honda and rent a one-bedroom apartment. But you must have savings. Social Security. Something. The something was 3 life insurance policies worth $600,000 each. Policies I'd never signed. Policies with medical exams I'd never taken. As a federal investigator, I'd seen this pattern before. Family members taking out insurance on elderly relatives, then creating situations where those relatives might have accidents. But this was my son, my only child. The little boy I'd taught to throw a baseball, helped with homework, walked across the stage at his college graduation. I wanted to believe I was being paranoid, so I tested him. I started mentioning fictional health problems, made up a story about chest pains, pretended to have dizzy spells when he was around. Each time, Cade's eyes would light up just a little. His questions would get more pointed. Have you seen a doctor? What did they say? Did they run tests? And each time, I died a little inside. By August, I couldn't ignore the evidence anymore. Phone records showed calls between Cade and Dr. Harrison starting in July. Bank records showed suspicious payments. Insurance applications had been filed with someone else's signature, good enough to fool most people, but not good enough to fool a federal investigator who'd spent 2 decades examining fraudulent documents. The hardest part was continuing to play my role, showing up to family dinners, listening to Cade complain about money while knowing he was planning to solve his financial problems by ending my life. Dad, you look tired. Are you taking care of yourself? I'm fine, son. You should really think about getting help, in-home care, or maybe a nice facility where professionals can watch over you. A facility where I'd be isolated, vulnerable, where a medical emergency might go unnoticed until it was too late. I'm not ready for that yet, Cade. You might not have a choice soon. The way he said it, like he knew something I didn't. Because he did know something. He knew exactly when my choice would be taken away. He knew because he was planning to take it. That's when I made my decision. Not as a father, but as a federal agent with evidence of conspiracy to commit murder. I called Agent Morrison. I need to open an investigation. What kind of case? Insurance fraud, attempted murder. Who's the target? I looked at a photo on my desk. Cade's wedding day. He was smiling, confident, handsome. I was walking him down the aisle, so proud of the man he'd become. The target is me, and the perpetrator is my son. By September, we had wiretaps. By October, we had bank records. By November, we had everything we needed for arrests and convictions. All we needed was the attempted murder itself. We didn't have to wait long. The ICU waiting room filled up fast. Cade's collapse had made the news. Young marketing executive, sudden illness, Beverly Hills Hospital. His coworkers came first, then distant relatives I hadn't seen in years. I sat in the corner, still wearing my Uber jacket, watching 15 people discuss my son's condition like I wasn't there. Poor Cade, his boss whispered to another woman, and his father's just, I heard he drives for Uber at his age. How embarrassing for him. Anya worked the room like a politician, shaking hands, accepting condolences, playing the grieving wife perfectly. The doctors are doing everything they can, she told Cade's college roommate, but it's touch and go. What about insurance? Medical costs must be astronomical. We're fortunate. Cade was very responsible about coverage. Life insurance, medical, disability. He always said you never know what might happen. Life insurance. She actually brought up life insurance at her husband's deathbed. That's when I noticed the pattern. Anya wasn't just accepting sympathy. She was documenting witnesses, making sure everyone heard about Cade's grave condition, building a narrative for later. The narrative where he died unexpectedly, leaving behind a grieving wife and $1.8 million in life insurance benefits. Dr. Harrison entered the waiting room with practiced solemnity. Family of Cade Collins? Everyone turned. Dr. Harrison's eyes swept past me entirely, landing on Anya. Mrs. Collins, could we speak privately? Actually, Anya said loudly, I think everyone should hear this. Cade wouldn't want secrets. Brilliant. More witnesses to whatever lie she was about to tell. His condition has deteriorated. The diabetes complications have caused multiple organ stress. Cade's boss looked confused. Diabetes? Cade doesn't have diabetes. Unfortunately, he was recently diagnosed. Adult onset. Very serious. But he ran a marathon last month, someone else said. Diabetes can be unpredictable. I stood up from my corner chair. Dr. Harrison, what's his current insulin level? He turned, noticing me for the first time. I'm sorry, who are you? His father. The room got quiet. Not respectful quiet, uncomfortable quiet. Mr. Collins, was it? Medical details are complicated. We should let the professionals handle what? Basic blood chemistry? Anya stepped forward. Dad, please, this isn't the time. Dad. She'd never called me that before. Playing to the audience. When is the time, Anya? When he's dead? Gasps around the room. I was being inappropriate, disruptive. Exactly what they expected from the working-class father who couldn't afford to be here. Sir, Dr. Harrison said firmly, I'm going to have to ask you to step outside. Why? Because I'm asking questions you can't answer? Because you're upset and not thinking clearly. I'm thinking perfectly clearly. Clear enough to know that insulin doesn't spike to lethal levels from food poisoning. More uncomfortable shuffling. This was getting embarrassing for everyone. Cade's college roommate touched Anya's arm. Maybe he should see someone. Grief counseling or... That's exactly what I was thinking, Anya said sadly. He's been under tremendous stress. Financial problems, health issues. I think this situation is just... overwhelming him. Beautiful. Now I was the unstable one. The family member who couldn't handle reality. Financial problems? I asked. What financial problems? Dad, come on. Everyone knows. Knows what? That I drive Uber? That I live in a small apartment? That my clothes aren't expensive? The room was watching like it was a tennis match, back and forth between the grieving wife and the inappropriate father. That you can't take care of yourself, Anya said gently. Cade's been worried about you for months. Your memory, your judgment. He wanted to help, but you're so proud. She was good, very good, making me sound like the problem while positioning herself as the reasonable one. My memory is fine, good enough to remember that Cade called me exactly 3 hours and 47 minutes ago, first time in 6 months. He felt guilty about not calling enough. He mentioned that to Dr. Harrison. Dr. Harrison nodded gravely. Mr. Collins was very concerned about his father's mental state. He'd been researching memory care facilities. The trap was perfect. Every word out of my mouth would sound like paranoid rambling. Every question would be evidence of my deteriorating mental condition. Facilities, I repeated. For someone who drives 8 hours a day without incident. Someone who balances his own checkbook, pays his own bills, and somehow managed to raise a son who graduated college. Past performance doesn't indicate, Dr. Harrison started. Doesn't indicate what? Current competence? Then why are you pushing a DNR order for a 35-year-old man with food poisoning? The room went dead silent. Anya's jaw tightened. Dr. Harrison explained the complications. What complications? Specifically? His organs are failing. From what? The diabetes. That he was diagnosed with when? Last month. By who? Dr. Harrison. Based on what tests? Dad, stop. This time Anya's voice had an edge. You're making this harder for everyone. I looked around the room, 15 faces staring at me with pity and embarrassment. The crazy father who couldn't accept his son's illness. You're right, I said quietly. I should stop asking questions. I should just sign whatever papers you put in front of me and trust the professionals. Relief flickered across Anya's face. That's all we're asking. Just trust that my healthy son suddenly developed diabetes. Yes. Trust that food poisoning caused organ failure. Yes. Trust that he needs a DNR order after 18 hours in the hospital. The doctors know best. Trust that paying his medical bills before he got sick makes perfect sense. Anya blinked. What? Trust that taking out 3 life insurance policies on his father was just good planning. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Dr. Harrison stepped backward. Mr. Collins, you're clearly distraught. Trust that my daughter-in-law's $180,000 gambling debt has nothing to do with any of this. Anya's face went white. How did you trust that this is all just a terrible coincidence? I pulled out my phone and hit a speed dial number. Trust that your plan actually worked. The phone rang twice before someone answered. Agent Morrison, it's time. Anya lunged for the phone, but I stepped back. FBI Financial Crimes Unit, Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, ICU waiting room. We have suspects in custody ready for arrest. That's when the screaming started. Not from the suspects. From everyone else who suddenly realized they'd been watching a federal sting operation unfold in real time, and that the crazy father in the Uber jacket wasn't crazy at all. Part 7. Status Reveal Konkai. 1,200 Tau. Agent Morrison arrived with 3 other agents in 2 minutes flat. The waiting room exploded into chaos. Cade's co-workers pressed against the walls, cell phones out, recording everything. His boss was already calling someone, probably corporate legal. FBI, nobody move! Agent Morrison's voice cut through the noise like a blade. She held up her badge, scanning the room until her eyes found mine. Special Agent Morrison, Financial Crimes Unit. Mr. Collins, are you ready to proceed? Ready, Agent Morrison. The title hit the room like a physical blow. You could actually see people processing it. Mr. Collins. Not hey you or sir or Cade's father. Mr. Collins. Anya was backing toward the exit, but Agent Torres already had it covered. Anya Collins, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder in the 1st degree, federal insurance fraud, and racketeering. This is insane, Anya shouted. He's just an Uber driver. He's confused. Agent Morrison smiled. It was not a friendly expression. Actually, Mrs. Collins, he's senior federal investigator, Elio Collins, 22 years with financial crimes. Badge number 2847, currently assigned to Operation Family Trust, a multi-state investigation into insurance fraud. The silence was deafening. Cade's boss dropped her phone. 22 years, I said calmly. Specializing in family-perpetrated insurance fraud. This case took 8 months to build. Want to hear some highlights? Dr. Harrison tried to slip away, but Agent Chen blocked his path. Dr. Marcus Harrison, you're also under arrest. Medical license fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, bribery. I want my lawyer, Dr. Harrison stammered. You'll need a good one. We have recorded conversations between you and Mr. Collins discussing payment schedules for falsifying medical records. I pulled out my phone and played a 30-second clip. Cade's voice. How much to make sure he doesn't wake up? Dr. Harrison's voice. 50,000. Half up front, half when it's done. Cade's voice. And it'll look natural? Dr. Harrison's voice. Diabetic shock. Happens all the time to men his age. The recording stopped. You could hear people breathing. That conversation took place October 15th, I said. Harrison's bank records show a $25,000 deposit on October 16th. Anya was shaking now. You can't prove we actually did anything. Can't I? Agent Morrison opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. 3 life insurance policies, total value $1.8 million. Applications submitted with forged signatures over 8 months. She spread out photocopies on the waiting room table. Policy 1, March 28th. Northwestern Mutual, $600,000. Policy 2, June 15th. State Farm, $600,000. Policy 3, August 30th. Prudential, $600,000. Forgeries can be detected through microscopic analysis, I added. The handwriting pressure, pen ink composition, paper aging. I've been analyzing fraudulent signatures for 2 decades. More papers hit the table. Bank records showing payments to Dr. Harrison, text message logs coordinating today's timeline, audio recordings of planning sessions. Cade's college roommate stared at the evidence. Cade was trying to kill his father? For money, Agent Morrison confirmed. Classic family fraud pattern. Isolated elderly target, substantial insurance payouts, medical conspiracy to disguise murder as natural death. I'm not elderly, I said. I'm 49, but to them, I was just a burden they could monetize. Dr. Harrison's face was gray. The recordings are inadmissible. Privacy laws don't apply to federal investigations with probable cause. We've been monitoring this conspiracy since March under warrant number FB 2024-3891. Agent Chen held up an official document. Federal wiretap authorization. Every conversation, every text, every financial transaction. That's when Anya broke completely. It wasn't my idea. It was all Cade. He's the one who said he was useless. He's the one who found the doctor. I just went along with it. Throwing your husband under the bus already? Agent Morrison asked. Classy? You don't understand the pressure we were under? My debts, his expectations. We needed the money. So you decided to murder his father. We decided to solve a problem. The words hung in the air like toxic gas. A problem, I repeated. That's what I was to you. A problem to be solved. Around the room, faces showed every emotion from shock to disgust. Cade's boss was recording everything on her phone. His coworkers were backing away from Anya like she had a disease. Sir, a young man in an expensive suit said, I'm calling corporate security and the media relations team. Cade's reputation wasn't just destroyed, it was incinerated. Agent Torres finished cuffing Anya. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. What about Cade? Someone asked. Mr. Collins is currently stable, Dr. Ditt, Anderson announced, entering the waiting room. The insulin overdose has been counteracted. He'll make a full recovery in time for his federal trial. Insulin overdose? Cade's boss looked confused. I thought he had food poisoning. Food poisoning was the cover story, I explained. Dr. Harrison administered a massive insulin dose to simulate diabetic shock. If we hadn't intervened, he would have died within hours. But why would he agree to that? Because he thought I was supposed to be the victim. The plan was to give me the insulin overdose, not him. But we switched the vials. Agent Morrison smiled grimly. Mr. Collins poisoned himself with the same method he planned to use on his father. Poetic justice. The room erupted in whispers. This was bigger than anyone had imagined. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, raising my voice, you've just witnessed the conclusion of Operation Family Trust. Thank you for serving as witnesses to federal arrests. Cade's college roommate raised her hand like she was in school. Are we in trouble? Not at all. You're witnesses to justice being served. As the agents led Anya and Dr. Harrison away in handcuffs, the waiting room slowly emptied. People walked out in stunned silence, phones buzzing with calls to lawyers, reporters, family members. Within an hour, this would be all over social media. Within 2 hours, it would be national news. Within 24 hours, every insurance company in America would be reviewing their fraud detection protocols. But right now, in this moment, I was just a father whose son had tried to kill him for money, and a federal agent who'd done his job. Mr. Collins, Agent Morrison touched my shoulder. Ready to finish this? I looked toward the ICU where my son was recovering from his own murder weapon. Let's go talk to Cade. Cade was awake when we entered his room. The insulin had been flushed from his system, but the realization of what had happened was just sinking in. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, like a balloon losing air. Dad? His voice was weak, confused. What's happening? Where's Anya? Anya's been arrested, so has Dr. Harrison. Agent Morrison stepped forward. Mr. Collins, I'm Special Agent Morrison, FBI Financial Crimes Unit. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, federal insurance fraud, and racketeering. Cade's eyes darted between us. Murder? What murder? I'm the one in the hospital bed. With an insulin overdose you administered to yourself, I said quietly, using the same method you planned to use on me. The color drained from his face completely. That's impossible. I would never. Cade. I sat down beside his bed. My voice stayed gentle but firm. It's over. We have everything. 8 months of recordings, bank records, insurance applications, text messages. He stared at me for a long moment. Then something shifted in his expression. Recognition, not shame, calculation. You're not an Uber driver. No. You've been investigating me. Yes. For how long? 8 months. Since the first insurance application. He was quiet for 30 seconds, processing. When he spoke again, his voice was different, colder. You set me up. I gathered evidence of crimes you were already committing. You recorded our private conversations. I documented conspiracy to commit murder. You let me poison myself. I let you demonstrate your method, under controlled medical supervision. Agent Morrison stepped forward with handcuffs. Mr. Collins, you have the right to remain silent. Wait, Cade held up his hand. I want to make a statement. Cade, don't, I said. Get a lawyer first. He looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Pure hatred. Why? Worried I'll tell them how you manipulated your own son? I'm worried you'll incriminate yourself further. Further than what? You already destroyed my life. You destroyed your life when you decided to murder me for money. Murder. He spat the word. Such a dramatic term. I prefer strategic inheritance planning. Agent Morrison's eyebrows shot up. Sir, you're confessing to premeditated murder. I'm confessing to solving a problem. My father was broke, lonely, and useless. I gave his life meaning, purpose, value. The words hit me like physical blows. $1.8 million of value, he continued. That's more than he'd ever earned driving strangers around. I was doing him a favor. A favor, I repeated. Yes, instead of dying forgotten and poor, he would have died contributing to his family's success, his grandchildren's education, something worthwhile. Agent Morrison was frantically taking notes. Defense attorneys dream about clients who confess this thoroughly. And when the insurance money came through, I asked, Anya and I could finally live appropriately, the way people like us should live, not paycheck to paycheck like some working-class family. There it was, the truth beneath everything else. He wasn't ashamed of being poor. He was ashamed of me being poor. People like you, I said. What kind of people are those? Educated, sophisticated, important. His voice was getting stronger, more confident, like he was explaining something obvious to a child. Not the kind of people who drive Uber at 50 years old. The kind of people who murder their parents for inheritance money. The kind of people who make difficult decisions about limited resources. I stood up slowly. Cade, do you understand what you just said? I said I'm not ashamed of prioritizing my family's future over one man's meaningless existence. Agent Morrison finished writing and looked up. Sir, you just confessed to premeditated murder with financial motivation. That's a capital offense. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Cade's face. Capital? What does that mean? It means you could face the death penalty. The room went silent except for the beeping of medical equipment. That's not... I didn't mean... Cade looked at me desperately. Dad, tell them I didn't mean it. Tell them it was just talk. I looked at my son, my only child, the little boy who used to fall asleep in my lap watching cartoons. I can't tell them that, son. Why not? Because I've spent 8 months listening to you plan my death in excruciating detail. Because you just confessed to attempted murder in front of a federal agent. Because every word you've spoken has been recorded as evidence. I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording app that had been running since we entered the room. And because 22 years of investigating fraud has taught me that people who murder family members for money don't deserve protection from the consequences of their choices. Agent Morrison approached with the handcuffs. Mr. Collins, you're under arrest. Dad, please. I'm your son. Yes, you are. And that makes this the hardest thing I've ever had to do. The handcuffs clicked shut. But it's also the right thing to do. As Agent Morrison led him away, Cade turned back one last time. I hate you. I know. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed your own family for your precious career. I watched my son disappear down the hospital corridor in federal custody. No, Cade, I've chosen justice over family loyalty. There's a difference. The door closed behind them. I was alone in the ICU room, surrounded by the smell of antiseptic and the sound of machines keeping my would-be murderer alive. 22 years of federal service. 8 months of the most difficult investigation of my career. And it was finally over. The news broke on social media before I even left the hospital. Family betrayal was trending within 2 hours. Someone had live-streamed the arrests on TikTok. By evening, security footage from the hospital was on every major network. Federal agent uncovers son's murder plot. CNN. Insurance fraud ring busted by target's father. Fox News. The Uber driver who wasn't, a family's deadly secret. Washington Post. My phone rang every 30 seconds. Reporters, old colleagues, distant relatives who suddenly remembered I existed. I turned it off. The legal consequences came fast and systematic. Cade's bail was set at $500,000. Money he definitely didn't have, since all his assets were frozen pending investigation. He'd be staying in federal custody until trial. Anya's gambling debts made her a flight risk. No bail. Her financial advisory license was suspended pending criminal proceedings. Every client account she had managed was under federal review. Dr. Harrison's medical license was revoked immediately. The California Medical Board opened investigations into every patient death under his care for the past 5 years. 14 families had already called lawyers. The insurance companies moved fastest of all. Northwestern Mutual, State Farm, and Prudential filed federal lawsuits within 48 hours. They wanted every penny back, not just the fraudulent claims, but all administrative costs, legal fees, and punitive damages. Total financial exposure for the defendants, $4.2 million. But the social consequences were almost worse. Cade's employer, a boutique marketing firm in Beverly Hills, issued a statement distancing themselves from his actions. He was terminated effective immediately. His company bio disappeared from their website overnight. His college deleted him from their alumni newsletter. The fraternity he'd been treasurer for sent a formal letter asking him to stop claiming affiliation. Social media was brutal. Someone had found his Instagram account and screenshots of his lifestyle posts. The expensive watches, the restaurant bills, the complaints about financial stress were being shared with captions like, "This is what entitlement looks like, and he killed for this?" The nursing home where my late wife's mother lived called to express their support. Apparently, they'd been following the case because elder abuse in families was a constant concern. "We see it all the time, Mr. Collins," the director said. "Adult children who view aging parents as financial burdens instead of human beings. What your son did, it's more common than people realize." That hit harder than I'd expected. The Federal Bureau of Investigation promoted me to Senior Supervisory Special Agent, effective immediately. 23 years of service, and the biggest case of my career involved my own family. My new assignment, heading up the Elder Financial Abuse Task Force for the Western region. Apparently, Operation Family Trust had revealed gaps in federal oversight that needed addressing. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd be spending the rest of my career protecting other parents from children like Cade. Agent Morrison stopped by my apartment a week after the arrests. "How are you holding up, Elio?" "I'm fine." "No, you're not. This is the hardest thing any investigator ever has to do." She was right. I'd been sleeping 3 hours a night, barely eating. The apartment felt different somehow. Smaller, like the walls were closing in. "The trial's going to be rough," she continued. "Defense attorneys love family cases. They'll paint you as the manipulative father who entrapped his innocent son. Will that work?" "Not with this evidence, but they'll try to make you look bad. Question your motives, your methods, your relationship with Cade." I considered that. My relationship with my son was that he planned to murder me for insurance money. I'm comfortable defending that in court. "What about after, when this is all over?" "What do you mean?" "Where do you go from here? Your son will be in federal prison for 15 to 20 years. Your daughter-in-law will be in prison. You'll be starting over completely." starting over. At 49 years old, with no family left, in a job that would constantly remind me of the worst betrayal imaginable. Agent Morrison, in 23 years of federal service, I've investigated hundreds of cases. Fraud, conspiracy, organized crime. I've seen every type of human betrayal you can imagine. And this case taught me something new. Sometimes the people who hurt you most are the people who claim to love you. And sometimes justice matters more than family. She nodded. That's a hard lesson. Oh, it's the right lesson. 3 months later, I transferred to Denver. New city, new assignment, new life. The only reminder of my old life was a single newspaper clipping I kept in my wallet. The headline read, "Federal Agent Chooses Justice Over Family Loyalty." Some choices define who you are. This was one of them. 6 months after the trial, I got a letter in federal prison mail. The return address was FCI Dublin, California, Federal Correctional Institution, where Cade was serving 18 years for conspiracy to commit murder and federal racketeering. I stared at the envelope for 3 days before opening it. Dear Dad, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know you think I'm a monster. Maybe I am. But I need you to understand something. I never stopped loving you. Even when I was planning what I was planning, I told myself it wasn't personal. It was just business. I was wrong. Prison gives you time to think. Too much time. I think about that day in the hospital a lot. The look on your face when you realized what I'd done. Not anger, not hatred, just disappointment. That's what breaks me. Knowing I disappointed the one person who never gave up on me. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I threw away. Not just the money or my freedom or my future. I threw away my father. The one person who loved me unconditionally, even when I was planning to kill him. I hope you're happy in Denver. I hope you find peace. I hope someday you can remember me as your little boy, not as the man who betrayed you. Love always, Cade. I read the letter twice, then put it in the fireplace. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Some betrayals are unforgivable. Some choices have consequences that last forever. But as I watched the paper turn to ash, I realized something important. I wasn't angry anymore. The rage that had sustained me through the investigation, the trial, the media circus, it was gone. In its place was something harder to define. Not forgiveness exactly, but acceptance. Cade had made his choice. I'd made mine. He'd chosen money over family. I'd chosen justice over blood. Neither of us could go back and change those decisions, but I could control what happened next. My new life in Denver was quiet, smaller. I worked cases involving elderly financial abuse, helping other families avoid what mine had gone through. I dated occasionally women who knew nothing about my past, my son, my 15 minutes of national infamy. I drove a newer car now, Honda Accord, not Civic, lived in a better apartment, had a retirement account that would actually support retirement. The federal promotion had doubled my salary overnight. Ironic that investigating my son's attempt to murder me for money had finally solved my financial problems. But the biggest change wasn't financial. It was psychological. For 49 years, I'd defined myself through relationships. As a husband, then a widower. As a father, then a betrayed parent. As an investigator, serving families torn apart by greed. Now, I was just Elio Collins, Senior Supervisory Special Agent, a man who'd learned that love without boundaries isn't love at all. That family loyalty without justice is just enabling. That sometimes the hardest thing to do is also the right thing to do. I kept one photo from my old life, Cade at age 7, gap-toothed smile, holding up a drawing he'd made at school. My dad the hero, written in crayon across the top. He'd been right about one thing. I was a hero, just not in the way he'd imagined. Heroes don't always save the day. Sometimes they just make sure the right people face consequences for their actions, even when those people share their DNA. Have you ever had to choose between love and justice? Between family and what's right? I hope you never have to. But if you do, remember this. Blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. Actions do. And some betrayals teach us exactly who we really are.